So, Adela, what do you think our journey is about this week? And what's most important to you this week?
Uh, obviously, it's to do with my children as they are the biggest triggers. They are my biggest triggers. In fact, they are my triggers. Um, and the reason why it's taken me so long to get to this point, I think, because I've suffered such bad depression in the last 4.5 years since I haven't seen them, is because I didn't realize I was grieving for them, because obviously they're still alive. So I need to help process that and how to know how to process that, especially, you know, when they are alive, and and also to deal with parental alienation, and just how to take back ownership of my life, because I've been waiting. It's almost like I've been stuck or like in quicksand, just literally hoping every day I'm going to hear from them or something, but to have no contact. And for my family and for my friends that they were brought up with to have no contact. That's all very difficult for me as well, because it's really painful for them. And I just want to gain balance in my life and know that the waiting, just push the waiting aside and just to get on with my life.
You mentioned balance. Do you feel that you've become imbalanced?
Oh my God, yeah.
What came first, the children leaving, or the alienation, or the imbalance within you?
What came first? Well, it's not just as simple as the children, being taken away from me. It was it was a whole build up to that of somebody else's influence over them, and so of course I was imbalanced. I was totally imbalanced. I tried my hardest, but it's very, very difficult when you're up against quite a lot of resistance.
Okay. And a lot of addiction stems from a lack of self-worth. People don't know how to cope. People don't know how to create balance, confidence, infrastructure. Were there times in your life early on where you felt a lack of self-worth or a lack of
Yeah.
security within yourself? When did that start for you?
At 4 years old.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
It's the most bizarre story, and I haven't ever shared it, obviously, because I've been to 4 rehabs now. I've never shared it before, because you always have to share your life story and I remember us being in Fort Lauderdale when my sister was born, and my family and I were in this huge, like, where you buy beds, it was a massive store. And I remember doing a cartwheel, and I was wearing a dress, and I remember the dress just fell down, so you could just see my underwear. And I carried so much shame around with it. I had such bad anxiety, because I was like, who saw it? Did anyone see it? And to be aware of your sexuality at such a young age is bizarre to me. I couldn't tell anyone. I was mortified. It really, and then that's when my anxiety began.
You say you became aware of your sexuality at such a young age. Did you attract people that were aware of your sexuality at a young age?
Well, I've only just thought about, the sexuality bit at the moment, because I couldn't understand why I was so ashamed of doing that cartwheel. But obviously, when we moved to Singapore, my sister and I were sexually abused by our driver, the family's driver, who was like part of our family. He was, we were so close to him. And, he used to drive us to and from school every day. So, and what's interesting about that is that I didn't remember until I was 21 what he was doing to us. I had no idea. I just didn't think about it. And then one night I was at dinner with my sister and some of my family, and I said, Joe, do you remember what John the driver used to do to us? And she went, oh my God. So I think that a lot happened there. I've always been really protective of my sister, really protective. But what that brought up for me also was, I couldn't help her. Like, I couldn't save her from having it done to her. And what about all the other children that he was doing it to? And I carry a lot of guilt about that. That really, it does haunt me, even though it's just something that I've got, it's a burden that I carry.
You've identified that you feel you're an addict, and it looks in many ways that you are suffering with addiction. What would you say your addictions are?
So, well, I've pretty much done everything. Shopping was one. That's not anymore. Um, Obviously alcohol, substance abuse. You know, food is really difficult as well because I'm very controlled about it, and I've got to be really, really rigid about it because I think that that's probably the only thing that I can control at the moment or feel in control of. I am addicted to, I've been addicted to relationships before, I've been married a few times. I've been addicted to spontaneity, not playing the tape through, and therefore having to pay massive consequences afterwards. I've been addicted to it just all being about me, my gratuitous, what I wanted. I've been addicted to helping others as well, which sounds like a real contradiction just there, but when you help others and go through their problems, you forget about your own.
Many addicts are a contradiction to themselves. One part goes right, one part goes left, and it just fluctuates randomly. Okay. Who do you feel you must now become in order for your children to return? And who must you now become in order for your life to now change?
I need to get my self-worth back, which has been ripped apart from obviously not having my children with me. And I know that on the outside I seem very confident and all that kind of stuff. I love to make people laugh. I love to laugh. I'm bubbly, I'm outgoing and everything. But, when I've done that, and you see me go home, then I'm isolating, I'm duvet diving, and I don't even answer the phone sometimes, So I need to have a balance of everything, and I need to get my strength back. I need to take control of my life, and instead of all the chaos, the chaos, or going from like this extremely outgoing person who's going, who's working out most days and, really enthusiastic about life, to hiding, not seeing my friends and not picking up the phone and being a terrible, friend, daughter, everything, just isolating.
You've been through rehab before. Tell us more about that.
So my first rehab was when I was 20. I was 20 years old when I first, and checked myself in. My parents were away, and it was a place called Farmhouse. And the reason I did that was because there was a few reasons actually. I had another cause of my massive anxiety was when I was 13 years old. My father, we all lived in Hong Kong, but we were at boarding school in England. And for some reason, my mum and I flew to Hong Kong, to our house in Hong Kong. Come here, baby. Flew to our house in Hong Kong, and it was just the two of us. And the first night we got there, I had this dream. That I'd killed my mother with a pair of scissors, right? I was 13 years old. And the next morning I walked into her room and she said, "Darling, you walked into my room and you were asking where the scissors were." I didn't sleep for 10 years when I was in the same house as my mum. I couldn't. I woke up every morning thinking there was going to be a blood bath. I pushed her so far away. She meant so much to me, and she is such an amazing mother. But I needed to protect her. So even when she came to pick us up from school or whatever, she'd be driving and I'd be sitting like this on the edge of the passenger seat, and I just wouldn't be able to sleep. And I remember I was born in Costa Rica, and we went to go and stay in my godfather's house, and his son, we were sleeping in his son's room, and I had 2 axes on the wall. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks because and that anxiety, that drove me. That's when I started really, really drinking as well, from such a young age. And I drank for oblivion. I couldn't cope. So then the next thing was, because I was then known on this kind of club scene at quite a young age, and I was partying a lot, just to forget all of this. Because obviously my mum is and was my world. But I was then asked to do a reality TV show, which then no one had ever done. Right now, we see it every single day. But back then, so that was what, I'm 45 now, so I was 18 when I did it. So what, 37 years? Is that 37 years ago? No. How many years ago? Okay, this isn't a maths quiz.
27?
But anyway, is it 27?
27,
Plus 80.
37, 45. Yes, 27.
Anyway, it was a program called The Word, and you know, it was kind of like, it was kind of gratuitous watching. I mean, they wanted to humiliate you. Anyway, I was put up by a club owner for Wild Child of the Year. So they then did an interview with me, and I drank a bottle of Jack Daniels, you know, and they weren't stopping me from drinking that Jack Daniels, I can tell you. And when it aired, it was the most humiliating thing I have ever experienced in my life. I mean, the way that they'd cut stuff and edited, but this was reality TV. This was me, like, you know, I had to go and see a hypnotist, Paul McKenna, to try and erase the thing. I never ever watched it afterwards, but I was stopped all the time, and I couldn't sleep. So that fueled the addiction. One of the worst thing was 3 years after I'd filmed that, I was walking down the road to my home, and someone ran out that I didn't know and went, "Oh my God, I've just seen you on TV." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I went to Primetime, you know, the old video shop, and I rented The Worst of the Word," which I was on it. And he said, "You were on it." Then I went under again for another 3, but that's when I checked myself into rehab after that, because then I spiraled out of control, and I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't, you know, nowadays it would seem like nothing, but back then, you can imagine.
So is anxiety one of your triggers from your perception?
Anxiety, look, anxiety from a young age, that was always, you know, I've had so much anxiety in my life, that's, you know, of course. And then when I'd split from my first husband, the father of my children, I was anxious all the time because, you know, I was always ready for another lawyer's letter or this or that. And of course I do get anxiety now, but when I'm sober, in the last 4.5 years, I haven't suffered from anxiety. It wasn't that. It was massive depression. I mean, like, massive just waiting and isolating and, you know, just helpless and hopeless, and, you know, to be told every single day they'll come back when they're this age, they'll come back when they're that age, they'll come back when they're of age. And, you know, they are of age and they have been for a while and they haven't come back. And it's destroyed me. I mean, there's been times where I couldn't see anyone for 3 weeks. The only thing that I would leave my room for is to take Disco for a walk in the park. I couldn't speak to anybody. I flake a lot on so many people, you know, especially at night time. I don't want to go out at night. I want to hide from the world and I want to watch Netflix. And it's very unhealthy. And then, you know, and every single time I was trying to make up a story in my head about justifying, you know, justifying or just helping me to process the fact that my children weren't with me. So I'd go from, because obviously I had so many triggers, you know, I'd walk into a store that I used to buy their toys in, and that would trigger me. So I had to stop going to a lot of my godchildren's birthday parties and friends' children's birthday parties. If a song came on the radio that we sang together, I had to turn it off. A program that we watched on TV, have to turn it off. I stopped having pictures around the house because they were, I couldn't deal with it. So then all these things came to me. So like, I'd be like, "Look, Adela, they're healthy, they're happy, and they're at great schools." So, you know, and that would keep me going for a while. That really would, you know. And then that ran out of steam because something would happen, trigger me, not to relapse, but it would just trigger me. So then I'd have to think about another rationale, which would be, you know, well, if they don't want to see me, then, you know, they're missing out. I mean, it's pathetic, but I mean, I was grasping at straws. Or, you know, just, oh God, I don't know. I've been through everything. I've been through absolutely everything. Everything to try and make it easier. Sending love and forgiveness. I've also had anger and resentment. How can they do this to me? You know, when I gave my life to them and loved them so much, and we did everything together, you know, to just hoping that they're happy and wishing that I could be there in the times when, you know, that they needed me, you know, because I can help, and I just wanted, and then the guilt and the torment about, you know, are they going to suffer from addiction? You know, how are they gonna process not being with their mother for, you know, coming up to 5 years? I just, you know, I can't believe this is my story.
The story is something we're going to discuss a lot this week, because everyone has a story, and that story, the meaning that you give life in your mind, empowers you, disempowers you, makes you feel good in one moment, destroys you the next. The story, the meaning you give things. So we're going to unpack a lot of that. You've mentioned you've been in rehab several times. What hasn't rehab given you that we must now discover? And I'm here to help you facilitate that gap. What hasn't rehab given you that you now need?
Well, okay, for example, I would never recommend to anyone any of the English rehabs. We are 20 to 30 years behind America for rehab. So Cottonwood was the last one that I went to, and it was in Arizona, and it stripped me bare. It was the most painful experience I have ever gone through. I've never cried so much. I have, you know, so it was very, very helpful. So, but the thing was, what was great about that was they did this thing called EMDR, which changes your thought process. So a lot of when you, a lot of relapses from shame, you know, so you keep relapsing because you're so ashamed of what you've done, the consequences of your, you know, addiction. You make terrible choices, so you keep relapsing. So, but then so that EMDR did stop me relapsing, and changing the idea of the shame around in my head and betrayal of people. So what what I'm looking for is changing the story to one that just gives me peace. I need to change this thought pattern from a negative, helpless, hopeless, no self-worth one to one of empowerment.
Yes.
And loving myself.
Would you accept that you are
myself.
a victim of your story?
I mean, I hate the word victim, and I feel so, because it's, yeah, but yeah, pour me another drink, yeah.
Many people, whether it's alcohol addiction, drug addiction, sex addiction, food addiction, they go about their day, they feel good, and then they start the thinking. They start a thought, and that thought creates a chemical reaction, a stress, an emotional frequency. It builds and builds and builds, and then they think, gosh, give me that thing that I now need to dissolve or dilute this feeling I have within me. And it's just like a fluctuation of energy throughout the day. Once we shift that and help you discover how to manage that frequency, you can just stay in this point of balance throughout your life, and we can start to create, which is what you started to discover through AMDR. It's a very powerful thing, changing thought process. Everyone says, be positive, do this, but people don't really know how. It's the how to be positive.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be positive. How do you do that? How do I create a positive outcome when I've got all of this stuff in my head? And as long as you go to that stuff we don't want in your head, you attract that, you create that, you manifest that, you react to that. So we're going to do a lot of unpacking on that. So I'm looking forward to that. What would you like people out there that are struggling to know about addiction and what's possible?
So from my perspective of addiction, it is a disease. It is a disease, no matter. You can spin the story any way you like. And but so with addiction, you can be addicted to anything. It really doesn't matter. But let's just take, for me, with alcohol, for example. I wanted oblivion, and I was going to get it at any cost. Addicts are very, very sneaky. They can sneak around. They will do anything, and they don't care about anyone else. They really don't. They become lost. Well, I didn't. And you just want to be with that thing that fills that hole. And with me, with alcohol, because I started drinking at quite a really, really young age, and then obviously I came out of rehab. And what they say with addiction is, So let's say I was clean for a year and a half after I came out of my first rehab. When you relapse, you're exactly the same place where you left off with your addiction. So let's say I was drinking a bottle of wine up until my first rehab. So then I relapse. So I'd start with a bottle of wine, which would then go to 2 bottles of wine. Then I'd become clean again. Then when I relapsed, it would be 2 bottles of wine, which would turn into 3 bottles of wine. And then I'd relapse, which would turn into 4 bottles of wine. 3, 4. It just goes on and on and on. So and during that time, it gets, your secretiveness, and you don't want anyone to know, and you're hiding bottles around the place, or, and you completely. Well, I was very unmanageable. In relapse, I can't do anything. I literally cannot do anything except focus on what I'm addicted to and how to get it, and I'll get it at any cost. And it's just I can't. It's just like I remember always just saying, I can't deal with this. 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 And I just know that that's the thought. That's what just goes through my head. It's like I can't cope. I can't cope. And but. So my addiction took me to some really, really dark places, making really, really bad choices. And like I said before, the consequences to those, as you can see, not having the children is one of them. And it's something that, has been used against me all my life, being an addict, but that doesn't help. So like when I went into the Priory 3 times, I think I've been to the Priory maybe 3 times, once only for a week. What they say is, you're an addict, it's your fault, you should be ashamed of yourself, you should be looking at the people that you've hurt around, When I went to Cottonwood, so that causes more shame. So you're more likely to relapse when you come out of that, right? When I went to Cottonwood, they said, every single feeling you have is valid.
Yes.
So the pain that you're in, we accept that. You are an addict, and you're gonna try and, get rid of that pain with anything you've got. So let's deal with the problem, not the addiction, because the addiction is a result of not dealing with the pain you're feeling. And my God, that was a revelation.
Yes.
It had taken me 35 years to get someone to just to understand that it's not my fault. It's not shameful. It's not, that when you are in pain, of course you're going to go through that, but let's deal with the problem. Let's not deal with because the addiction comes afterwards. I can't tell you how much that freed me.
It's very old school to sort of reinforce the belief that you're an addict. You should be ashamed. And all that does is reinforce that belief and keeps you at that point of attraction to keep creating from that thing that they keep reaffirming.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing, but so many people have bought into it, but they're not getting the results because whatever you reaffirm, creates a feeling within you, and then you find inspired action from that identity.
Yes, because
once we shift your subconscious identity, which is something else we're going to be looking at, this subconscious identity needs shifting. So when your mind accepts you are capable and you're worthy and you're lovable and deserving of great things, and you move into that higher set point, you will pull circumstances to that. And that's the version of you that I truly know and believe, I've seen it with thousands of people, will get the life you deserve. Maybe for the first time.
Yeah. I really resent the English rehabilitation centres for things like that, because you have to sit around a lot of people, maybe up to 20, tell them your life story, and then they come down and they come crashing down on you, which they're encouraged to do by the therapist, about how selfish you are, about how you've caused. I was called Hurricane Katrina for a long time, at my first rehab, and they would say, we cannot believe someone of your age of 21 could cause so much chaos and destruction behind you. Look at all the people you've hurt and stuff. You know that. As addicts,
you know it.
We don't have any problem,
what you're
suffering
looking for, a
from guilt.
solution, and how to discover how to create new thoughts and beliefs and chains, and get those new neuro associations in your mind so that you can find a way forward. It's very interesting. I'll just say that. Focusing on resentment, of course, it creates resentment within you, then you feel the resentment. They're not going to feel it. They probably don't even know we're talking about them. But focusing on resentment, let's find, love for them and look forward to them finding new, better practices as they move forward in their lives. Feels better that way.
Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing this. And we're now going to move forward with the process. So thank you.